I entered the wrong spaceship, the crew was all female dragons, and now they don't want me to go. The boarding ramp hissed shut behind Darien Voss before he realized his mistake. He'd been running late for the evac shuttle to Kepler Station, juggling a duffel bag and a half-eaten ration bar, eyes fixed on his phone's countdown timer instead of the gate number stenciled above the airlock. Dock 14. He was supposed to be at Dock 41. Huh, he said to the empty corridor, which was not actually empty, and which was also not built to human proportions. The ceiling arched 4 meters overhead, ribbed like the inside of a rib cage, glowing faintly amber. That's not good. A low rumble answered him. Not a voice, a vibration, felt in his molars before it resolved into words. Trespasser. Darien turned slowly. The thing filling the corridor was roughly the size of a delivery truck, scaled in deep emerald, with wings folded against a sinuous back and eyes like twin furnaces. A dragon. An actual, fire-breathing, mythology-made flesh dragon, currently looking at him the way a cat looks at a particularly stupid insect. I want to say this is a simulation, Darien managed, but I don't think you'd bother breathing on me like that if it were. The dragon's nostrils flared, releasing a thin curl of smoke. Why are you here, small one? Wrong gate. I was supposed to catch a transport to Kepler. He gestured vaguely at the airlock he'd come through, already half-turned to leave. The corridor lights shifted from amber to a deeper red, and a second, much larger presence unfolded itself from a side chamber easily twice the size of the first dragon, scales the color of poured bronze, a crown of bone ridges sweeping back from her skull like a diadem grown rather than worn. He smells of fierce sweat and ozone, she said, and her voice carried the unmistakable weight of command. And yet he hasn't run. In fairness, Darien said, I'm not sure running would help. The bronze dragon's furnace eyes narrowed with something that might have been amusement. A wise little creature. I am Vaelthra, queen of the Ashbound fleet. You stand uninvited upon my vessel, human. Darien Voss. And believe me, your majesty, uninvited is an understatement. I'm trying very hard to leave. That, it turned out, was the wrong thing to say. The trouble with dragon ships, Darien would learn over the following hours, was that they didn't run on engines so much as on belief, a bonded resonance between a vessel's hull and the collective will of its crew, sung into being through ancient draconic rites nobody outside the Ashbound fleet had ever heard, let alone understood. And belief, as it happened, was a fickle thing. The moment Vaelthra learned a human, a stowaway, however accidental, had crossed the threshold of her flagship, the Emberwake, an alarm older than alarms began to chime through the vessel's bones. Not a warning. A welcome. What does that mean? Darien asked the green dragon, whose name he'd learned was Cythera, third of the Queen's talons. The ship is singing. It means, Cythera said, herding him down the corridor with gentle nudges of her snout, the way one might herd an especially fragile sheep, that the Emberwake has decided you belong here. The hull does not sing for strangers. I'm extremely a stranger. Apparently not anymore. He was brought, eventually, before Vaelthra in a chamber that could only be described as a throne room built by creatures who had never once considered chairs. The queen lounged across a dais of fused obsidian, her tail curled twice around its base, watching him with the patient interest of someone observing a new and possibly edible species of insect. The ship has chosen you, she said, without preamble. This has not happened in 11 centuries. Chosen me for what, exactly? Crew. Companion. Anchor. She said the words like she was tasting each one for flaws. The Emberwake does not bond lightly, Darien Voss. The last soul she claimed died defending this fleet from the choir of hollow stars. We buried what little remained of him beneath the prow. Darien considered that information for slightly longer than was comfortable. So what you're telling me is your sentient warship has decided I'm replacing a dead war hero, and I just wandered in here because I can't read gate numbers. Yes, Vaelthra said, entirely without irony. Great. Cool. Love that for me. He tried to leave 4 more times over the next 2 days. Each attempt ended the same way, the ship's corridors rearranging themselves with quiet, patient stubbornness, doors sealing shut just ahead of him, gravity wells tilting half a degree so that every path eventually, gently, deposited him back near the bridge. It wasn't hostile. It was almost affectionate, in the way a large dog might lean its entire body weight against a person it had decided was its favorite. "This is insane," Darian told Cythera, on the 3rd day, watching the stars crawl past a viewport the size of a small house. "Your ship is in love with me." "Bonded," Cythera corrected, with the air of someone who had corrected this exact mistake before. "Not the same thing. Though the Queen has been unusually attentive to your well-being. She brought me 3 different kinds of food this morning and watched me eat all of it like she was grading a performance. She has not done that for any crew member in living memory. You should feel honored. I feel like a houseplant someone's overwatering." What Darian didn't say, because it sounded absurd even inside his own skull, was that he didn't actually want to leave anymore. Not because of the bond, not because of the ship's stubborn architecture, but because somewhere in the last 72 hours, watching Vaelthra command a fleet of creatures 11 times his mass with nothing but voice and presence, watching her listen, actually listen, to the smallest concerns of her crew before deciding how to steer a dozen warships through contested space, he'd started to respect her. Genuinely. The kind of respect that made a person want to stay and be useful, rather than be carried off as cargo. So when the choir of hollow stars found them on the 5th day, 3 black, asymmetrical vessels dropping out of warp with the silent malice of things that had never needed to announce themselves, Darian didn't run for an escape pod. He ran for the bridge. "You should be in the lower holds," Vaelthra said, not looking away from the tactical display, where the choir's ships were already arranging themselves into a pincer formation that had clearly worked many times before. "Yeah, well, your ship apparently thinks I'm crew now, so?" Darian dropped into the empty station beside her, a console built for clawed hands, all wrong for human fingers, except it wasn't, not quite, because the moment he touched it the interface reshaped itself, softened, simplified, like it had been waiting. "What does this one do?" Vaelthra's eyes cut to him, furnace bright, something unreadable moving behind them. "Resonance array. It coordinates the fleet's bonded song into a single offensive harmonic. So it's a weapon. It is a voice, small one. It requires a conductor. I've never conducted anything in my life." Neither had Kestrin, the first time the Emberwake claimed him, she said, and for just a moment her voice carried something almost soft beneath the command. "Sing anyway." He didn't know the words. He didn't know the rites, the harmonics, the 11 centuries of draconic tradition bound up in that console. But the ship did, and it poured that knowledge into him through the bond like water finding the lowest point, and Darian Voss, human, stowaway, accidental anchor of an ancient warship, opened his mouth and let the Emberwake sing through him. The resonance array screamed to life. Across the formation, 11 other dragon-crewed vessels answered the call, their own bonded songs rising to meet his, weaving into something vast and furious and impossibly coordinated. The choir's pincer broke apart under the force of it, 2 of their ships tumbling away in spirals of crippled plating, the 3rd retreating into warp before its hull could finish failing. The bridge went quiet except for the residual hum of the dying harmonic. Vaelthra looked at him for a long moment, and then, slowly, something that might have been a smile spread across teeth the size of kitchen knives. "Well, Darian Voss," she said. "It seems you have found your gate after all." He laughed, shaky with adrenaline, and didn't try to leave again.